Before we go any further, too, I'd like to also, if Pete willing, that I talk a bit about his crossing over, because several things happened, and Pete is right here. I'm not talking behind his dead body. It's funny. Okay, piss off number one. He's talking about dead people. You're all going to die. Laugh about it. Pete did when he crossed over. He had made a semi-conscious decision a little while back, saying that he truly wanted to work with each and every one of you, all of you. How could he be in the best service? He looked at his life, he looked at his age, he looked at his body, his ancestral body, and he said, I can best work and help Shambra from the other side. He said that in spite of all that we've talked about with the embodied enlightenment, he didn't feel that was for him, and that's fine. You don't have to choose it. It's not actually a goal. He said, it's not for me. I'm ready. And Pete was not afraid of death. What little fear there was, he was able to go beyond that. And so very quietly, he crossed over. And the important thing is that the true crossing over occurred 4 days before his physical body died. It's not when your physical body goes that you're dead, you've crossed over. The crossover occurs before then, even in the case of nearly all what you'd call catastrophic accidents. Even in the case of violence, war, things like that. There is a knowingness from the soul that its human condition is going to terminate that expression before it happens. Many people dream of their own deaths before they die. I'm not talking about the ones where you're falling into the ground, but they, in a sense, rehearse the death before they die. Yeah, it gives them kind of a knowingness, a comfort when they finally do go over. Not all the details, but just the true crossing over. So Pete left 4 days before his body died. Imagine what it's like for Pete, who's got a big smile on his face, looking at the body and saying, go, be done, out, gone. And here, to his frustrations, the doctors were trying to revive the body. Doctors were trying to figure out what's wrong, and of course they couldn't, because there was nothing really wrong per se. It was just Pete's time. The family gathered around and expressed some vague and insincere tears, which... Piss off day. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Time for a little honesty here. How many of you have been to a funeral and had the crocodile tears that were not terribly sincere? How many of you know other people who have gone to a funeral and just a week or two prior to the death of the person were talking about what a son of a bitch they were? And they go to the funeral, oh. So it didn't alarm Pete in particular. It wasn't a big deal. He had already gone beyond so many of the family connections, already gone beyond. But it's a strange thing to watch, and I'm telling you this, it's kind of surreal because some of you have already had kind of an experience with it. But it's strange watching yourself. I don't want to say you're looking down. That's kind of a human precept, but you're just kind of there and you're kind of not. You're kind of in the room, but you're kind of not. Like, in a way, like Pete is here today, but he's also with me on the other side, kind of in both. And the doctors, boom, 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 banging on your chest and sticking needles in you, and you're like, just let me go. And the family gathered around with the tears, but really, let's be honest, wondering about the will. Edith, it's true. It's going to happen. You know, that's what humans do. But what about the will? So, yeah, good. So Pete, looking down, really just almost impatient, waiting for the body to release. And even before it did, coming to the other side and realizing this is more of reality than that. On the other side, of course, I was there. Of course, other Shambra who have gone before, in these past 8-10 years in particular, gone before to do the very same thing, to be there for other Shambra who are going to go into their embodied enlightenment, to be there because it is difficult to stay here. Pete will tell you that right away. It is very difficult. And there's no shame whatsoever in going to the other side. There's no real pain in death, if any of you have been fearing it. There's no bad. It's not like Pete feels incomplete at all. He feels very, very complete. And he realizes that where he is now is not about ascension. He may never come back for another lifetime. Doesn't need to. It's not about ascension. It's actually really not about enlightenment, kind of not. It's about just being in the I am. And Pete, tremendously happy right now on both sides of the veil, here to be here for each and every one of you who chooses to stay. And if you don't, there's no shame in it. Pete was tremendously relieved of the physical body. His body was a chore for him, as it is for so many of you. But more than anything, Pete was relieved of being free of so many of the limitations of the human mind. Now, the human mind does not die or leave when the being departs. And actually, even when the body dies, the physical body stops, the mind actually, the human portion of the consciousness, the human mind actually continues on for a while. It doesn't integrate right away unless a person is quite conscious. It takes a little while. Pete was surprised that even after the body died, that the mind was still there, still chattering away. And he's like, well, the body is dead. Shouldn't the thoughts stop? No, they can continue. For Pete, just a few days. For others, years. Many years afterwards. For all of you. It will be easy. The mind stuff will stop right away because you're coming to understand something called consciousness. Pete had several interesting things to say, and he would like to come by the SHOUDs quite often, actually. But one of the things he realized, and it was quite profound, he said, live life to the fullest or leave. Absolutely live it to the fullest. And he realized on crossing over that one of the things that he did in his life was hold back. All humans do, to their various degrees. Live it to the fullest. Live it without holding back. Live it like you saw in this beautiful video. That's life. That's life. No holding back. It doesn't matter, Pete told me. It doesn't matter what other people think about you. It really doesn't, because their judgments are meaningless. And anything they think about you is based on their definition of what they think they should be and what you should be. Live life to the absolute fullest. Crazy, if that's what others call it. It doesn't matter. Irresponsible, meaning irresponsible to other people. Responsible to self, but irresponsible irregardless of other people. Live it to the fullest or leave. And he asked me to point this out today because he left. He knew he wasn't living it to his fullest, and he didn't feel physically or financially that he could. So he left and was happy that he did, happy that he didn't drag it out for another, 5, 10, 20 years. Live your life to its absolute fullest or leave. That's a tough one, because most people are going to say, well, I'll try. I'll just try, and I'll keep going. As Pete observed right away, that's pathetic. It's pathetic when you keep going in the same old ways, even when you know better. It's pathetic when you're afraid to live fully. It's pathetic when you live small, when you live little. Live it full or leave, exactly as he did, or leave. Because ultimately, you're only frustrating yourself. Ultimately, you're basically, in a way, really judging yourself when you're living falsely, when you're living small. And that's where the scared and sacred comes in. What you're doing is sacred. It really is. But it's scary. And that's the thing maybe you weren't expecting when you got into all of this. It's scary because your body feels different at times. You wonder what's happening to it. And for Shambra in particular, about 99% of what's happening to your body are adjustments into a higher state of consciousness. Not that you're sick, or you'll get sick, but it's a type of releasing and cleansing. And I know it feels awful. You feel like sometimes you're going to die. You get going in your mind, what's wrong with me? What have I done wrong? Nothing. It's an adjustment. And if you do depart, your body gives out on you. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to die. And you're going to die anyway. So let's laugh about that. A tough group. When you can laugh about death, really your problems are over with. But it's scary because even beyond the physical death, it's scarier what's going on up here. The body is actually easier to deal with than what's going on up here. And things start changing and they get weird and it's disorienting and it's frightening and you're wondering if you're doing the right thing you feel like you're actually getting paranoid. You're really not, but you feel like you are, and you feel like all your thoughts are crazy. None of the organization in the mind, the controls, none of the old tricks work anymore. And then it feels desperate. It feels very desperate. What are you going to do? Of course, what you try to do is to go back, to go backwards, go back to what you were doing before. And you know it doesn't work. You know it doesn't work. Then you feel like you're in this dark abyss, a void with nothing. And you are. That's a tough spot to be in. It's a really difficult spot, but that's when you get to know yourself the best. Not yourself as in your human persona, but that's when you get to know the I am. That's when you discover, like Pete did, I exist. Even in this nothingness, I exist. That's it. So, sacred, yes. Scary, very, very. And the interesting thing is, you are a tough group because you keep asking for more. And you keep laughing. Two of you laughed. You keep asking for more. It's a tough one, my friends, but we're gonna have a little talk in a couple of months. I think I mentioned in a few shouts back that February 14th, we're going to talk and say, where are we? How are you in your allowing of the realization of enlightenment? And I use those words very carefully.